So we're going to be talking about reactivity today. So leash reactivity is typically characterized as an involuntary emotional overreaction to a perceived threat. And this is typically characterized by an increase in heart rate, increased production of stress hormones, increase in behaviors related to self-preservation, right? And then emotional overdrive of the limbic system, the part of the brain that is responsible for emotions. Reactivity in our dogs is very emotional. It's not a behavior problem, it's not an obedience issue. The dog is actually having a hard time. So, self-preservation behaviors often include stalking, lunging, whining, barking, growling, air snapping, and quite a few more. So the function of that reactive behavior is actually most of the time to increase distance, to cause the scary thing, the thing that your dog perceives as a threat, their trigger, to go away. Reactivity for our dogs is typically as uncontrollable as our own emotional reflex to cry. Again, it's not an obedience issue, it's not a manners issue, it is emotional. Try to remember with reactivity, it's not personal, it's very physiological. So the body believes it's under threat. When the animal perceives a stressful situation but they can't escape, a chronic stress reaction occurs. So when the animal spirals out, they spiral into an irrational and uncontrollable state of panic. There are three pillars of reactivity: prevention, rewiring these negative associations that your dog has formed, and replacing the problem behavior with the desired alternative that is ideally incompatible with that problem behavior. So let's talk about pillar one, prevention. Practice behavior becomes perfected behavior. The reaction itself is addictive. And this is because that spike of adrenaline in the body, actually the body starts to crave it. And so the dog actually starts to look for things to react to and they become extremely hypervigilant. So it's really, really important that we prevent the rehearsal of this behavior outside of training. We'll prevent the rehearsal of the behavior altogether. When the cycle is allowed to continue, it becomes addictive and more challenging to break. So you've probably heard that practice behavior becomes perfected behavior, and that couldn't be more true with reactivity as well. Prevention is again about preventing continued practice, avoiding exposure to their trigger when not actively training. Make environmental adjustments in your home and in your car to make this possible. Our second pillar is rewiring those negative associations through counter conditioning and desensitization. If we want our dog to perceive their trigger as something other than stressful, the easiest way to achieve that goal is by pairing that trigger with something your dog really, really likes. And usually that is some kind of high value treat. So we can also achieve this through play. If your dog is highly motivated by toys, instead of giving them a treat after they see their trigger, we can engage them in a game of tug of war, for example.
Yes. Good job. Yes. Oops.
Order to achieve this, distance is crucial. That if the dog is too close to their trigger, then learning can't happen. They will be over threshold. So green zone, no triggers present. Yellow zone, they can perceive the trigger without reacting. And red zone, the dog has entered into survival mode and no learning can occur. Stopping behavior should never be the goal because it's not going to get you anywhere. If we just try and punish the behavior or stun the animal out of performing that behavior, we may get instant gratification in the moment, but it's not going to change that behavior pattern. It's not going to change that association, and it's going to damage the relationship we have with our dog, therefore making it harder to actually get the behavior that we're really needing to get to. So We do not want to use intimidation, no physically forcing our dogs, pinching, staring, baiting, or dominating. So we ultimately want to avoid force, fear, or intimidation. So instead, we're going to construct behavior. We're going to notice the good behaviors and prevent the unwanted ones. Notice and reward the behaviors you want to continue. What is it that you want your dog to do instead? Train them the alternative in that green zone, okay? And remember to prevent continued practice of the unwanted behavior using management. That brings us to pillar 3, which is training our dog's incompatible behaviors to the problem behavior. These are often referred to as replacement behaviors. So embolden change through scientific training systems. Get curious about your dog's behavior. Hone in your patience. You're going to need it. Remember that it's just behavior. Don't take it personally. Make compassionate decisions. Make educated decisions. And when you're at a loss, ask for support and help. Training is a journey, not a destination, and we're in it together.